Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Clintonville Slasher. I'm your host, Serge Frankowitz, and today we're going to be talking about the Ed Gein monster story that just popped out on Netflix. Again, with me today is my very good friend, Jeff Hill, from my band, planfiled57. Welcome, Jeff.
Good people. How's it going?
What's up? Let's just dive into this. So the story kind of starts off with Ed Gein and his mom. And, it introduces Augusta, and it introduces, how, who Henry was. In that first episode, I think that he got a majority of what I've known from the case correct.
It's kind of how I felt about it, too. Like, I thought the first two episodes seemed rather documentary-ish, almost. Yeah. And I thought, personally, I was like, I kind of like the way this is going. They're not taking too many liberties with it. It seems pretty straightforward to what actually happened, and so I absolutely would agree. The first two episodes is pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and I think, but where it gets shaky for me is when they start introducing Adeline Watkins. Now, I've heard of Adeline Watkins before, but I always thought she was full of shit, and I always thought the story was fake. Apparently, she was a girl in town that Ed Gein dated for like 20 years, and they were engaged. I always thought that when I first heard about it, that a long time ago, and I always thought it was bullshit because you got glasses that big and you can't see that many red flags. You're fucking full of shit, lady. There's no way. There's no fucking way that she dated Ed Gein for 20 years, So I think that a lot of that was horseshit, So that's where it gets wonky
for a love story.
What's that?
I kind of felt it was kind of fabricated so they could have a sense of an ongoing love story.
Right, and I kind of like where Ed Gein, his mind would decline. I guess they have to, humanize him in some sort of way to get him to, so you can actually, sympathize with him, I guess, and, the love of his life leaves. But I don't see it, I just don't see it. Ed Gein was a goof, he wasn't stupid or anything. From what I know is Ed Gein grew up in La Crosse. He was born to George and Augusta Gein. George was a drinker, and they went and lived in rural Plainfield, Wisconsin, where they ended up. And that's where they lived on the family farm where they would do odd jobs. And they had Henry and Ed after that. And basically, George drank himself to death. He was a bad person. He beat the shit out of his wife. He beat the shit out of his kids. He was a bad human being.
Not a nice guy.
Yeah, and no, not a nice guy at all. And so I think that from what they got from the show, Augusta she was overbearing towards Ed, and she told a lot of things about Ed, how she hated him and how he was, the problem. And her dad, his dad ends up passing away, and he kind of clings to his mom after Henry dies. Now, when the show showed Henry dying, that's not how it happened. I mean, it is and it isn't. It was during the springtime, and he did have a peculiar bump on his head, but they're not really sure. It could have been, a lot of things they got that's where it started to get wonky with me with the inconsistencies.
I agree. I think that's where things started going south. I did want to add, I don't usually do a whole lot of social media type stuff, but I did see somewhere that the idea of the Adeline girl, anytime he sees her wearing green in the show or something, that's imagined. Mm-hmm. Or anytime he sees her wearing red, it's imagined. And anytime he sees her wearing green is actual reality.
Right.
I might want to check into that.
Yeah, I think it was the other way around. I think it was when he saw her in green was when he envisioned her, and when he saw her in red was the real person, because she... the first person, and I'm going to jump around this I'm going to jump around the show from what I remember of everything, but from what I know of Ed Gein's actual cases, the first person he ever dug up was a girl named Adams. Now in the show, Adeline basically gives her a heart attack and says, I'm gonna wear red at your funeral and stuff, and she knew her, and then she was the one that pushed Ed into digging her up and, making the beast with two backs with her dead body, which I will never get the image of Charlie Hunnam's bare naked ass going to town on a dead body. The sounds were just fucking awful. Dude.
Funny. It's funny.
It was rough, dude. It was rough. So, and like, I've gone down to Plainsfield before, and I've gone down to, and I've gone down there to do episodes, and I've done one episode. And one of the things that I've learned about going down there is that the Warden family does not like to talk about this sort of case or anything. A lot of them want to get paid. They don't. A lot of them want to get paid. And so
they're not fans of the popularity at all.
Yes, and the fact that they painted Bernice Warden as a whore in this show was fucking wild to me. I could not fathom that. There's no way Ed Gein banged Bernice Warden. That did not happen at all. That's fabricated nonsense, and it was just Ryan Murphy's way. I don't know why. I don't know why. Where they got that idea. Now, Mary Hogan, her being the bar owner, her having like a crazy life. Sure, her nickname was Bloody Mary, and she was kind of a roughneck, and she did have a life. So they kind of got that right, and how Ed Gein killed her. But there's a lot, like we were taking a band practice before. Like, we didn't like this fact that that's what people are actually going to think that's what happened, and that's not what happened.
There's a lot of people that I think are going to take a made up TV show with a lot of liberties taken as wow, that's what actually happened. I mean, in some instances, yes, potentially, but yeah, I was a little disappointed by the excessive amount of drama I think that they put in.
Yeah, it seemed like they had to like goose the gears a little bit to get the story moving. Well, they really didn't have to. Ed Gein was only ever convicted of one murder at first. So the fact that they find Bernice Warden's body in Ed Gein's shed, that's true. And the fact that Henry Gein, or her son, I can't remember his name, Frank, I think, Frank Warden found his mother like that. The way she was described in the show is exactly how they found her. And that whole case was thrown out because Frank Warden beat the shit out of Ed Gein. But not at the truck, not at the scene. He did it in the interrogation room. He smacked his face against a brick wall, and that made his confession inadmissible at court. And they also passed a polygraph, and they got that right in the show as well, that he did pass a polygraph. But polygraph, this is 1957, all right? It's not going to be that good, and a lie detector test it's not that great to begin with anyway. You can't use it in court because it's so you can manipulate that. It's not a real thing.
Yeah, I felt it was interesting on some of the points that they did hit very accurately, in contrast to some of the stuff then that they wildly changed or just completely fabricated for the sake of entertainment purposes. Now, was it entertaining at times? Absolutely.
Yeah.
In particular, some we've discussed it. Like you said, I practiced some of the funnier parts. I'm sure we'll get to that stuff in the future here.
Yeah. We could talk about that. Like, some of the more comedic scenes was definitely like the magic trick scene. That shit was fucking hilarious. Like,
that was a highlight for
sure. What's that?
That was a highlight for sure.
Oh yeah. That part where that's the thing, is they did get the fact right that Ed Gein was a babysitter. So he babysits these kids. He goes in and he shows them. He's like, I can do a magic trick, and he takes 3 skulls and hides the finger under him, and then she like mixes them up and shit, and he pulls the one skull out, and it's not a finger bone anymore. It's an actual decapitated finger. And the kids are like confused, like, like, where did you get that? That's not real. And he's like, of course it's real. And then he says he can change into a woman, and he goes in the back and he grabs that head and he's like, hello, I'm Mildred. I'm going to pull my head off. And he pops his head off, and they're like, that's not real. And he unbuttons his jacket. He's like, got a fake face on. He's like, of course it's real. And like the traumatizing, This kid's fucking face.
Hilarious. It's kind of funny. The decapitated head actually reminded me a lot of like Long Legs.
Yeah.
For some odd reason, I don't know. It had a striking resemblance.
I'm pretty sure if anybody else could have played Ed Gein, I'm pretty sure the guy who played Longlegs, Nicolas Cage, could do it, because I don't think he can do anything wrong. He can play everything. Longlegs, another good movie. I did a review on that, and if you guys are interested, I would drop it links below. But back to Ed Gein. Also the fact that when he's arguing with Bernice and he's like, you with your sinful cold cuts and your unmentionables. And he goes and he leaves and he grabs the bra to wear, and like he's walking around wearing bras and stuff. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, that whole part when he confronts her for making him be a fornicator is probably, that, in my opinion, one of the highest points of the entire show.
Yeah, I agree. He tries to take the box and he leaves.
Right, and I think that is the best part, is that he stands there and makes zero attempt to ever give her the box of unmentionables back, and has every intention of leaving with them until she takes them from him.
Yeah, and then like him shooting her in the back of the head and dragging her out of the store, also real. That did happen, but the way they found Ed Gein, the way they discovered it was him, because he killed Mary Hogan in 1953 and in 1957 when he was caught. And in between there, he was digging up graves. There was the two hunters that go missing in the show that he apparently killed. That never happened. I actually never heard of him ever being accused of killing two hunters at all. So I don't know where the fuck that came from. Him with killing the babysitter Evelyn, he was thought to have done it, but he wasn't in La Crosse at the time where she was living. I don't even think they ever knew each other. So that was all fabricated as well. But again, he was accused of it, but never convicted. So, tomato, I guess. But I know. I just don't think that. I think there was a lot of things that they made up. But what I did enjoy about the show is that it interweaved like Psycho, and it put Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it put Buffalo Bob from Silence of the Lambs. Like it had those three things weaved into the story, which I actually like that.
I found that entertaining as well, how they kind of went through the timeline of horror. Starting with Hitchcock and Psycho, and then moving up into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre stuff, and how they kind of I like how they kind of had a little backstory involved in some of those aspects of it too. Like it wasn't just a quick nod to the fact that Psycho is based on Ed Gein, or a quick blurb in there that Texas Chainsaw Massacre had a lot to do with the same. They actually kind of gave a little bit of action to the thought behind that, and gave, again, I don't necessarily know how factual of process any of it really was, but it still was an interesting thing to think about, a new perspective to look at. I thought that was a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, I think you said it the best. I like that because like they showed Hitchcock, and they showed the birth of Psycho, and how Anthony Perkins' life was like inadvertently kind of ruined by Ed Gein. I thought that was really interesting.
And the guy who played him, I think, did a fantastic job as well.
Yes. Yeah, I think he was fucking awesome. He looked so cool. He looked just like him. It was fucking crazy. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if Anthony Perkins went through all of that, like trying to, if he was in that sort of, if he was gay, and I hope that he didn't have to go through therapy to like be who you are. That's fucking insanity. Like I really, that broke my heart right there, because that's just like, why, you know, because you are who you are. You can't like psychic out of you, you know. That's not so. If that really happened, I feel really fucking sorry for him, because that's fucked up. I loved Anthony Perkins. I just saw Psycho for the very first time last week. I had never checked it out before, pretty much because it's been ruined for me since I was a kid. But also, I've seen the remakes. I've seen Bates Motel. I've seen the sequels. The beginning is awesome. But the original movie has got to be Hitchcock's best film, and it's got to be one of the greatest horror movies ever to come out of like 1960. It's probably fucking scared the fuck out of people, and that really was the highlight of Hitchcock's career. And it kind of declined after that because everybody wanted more Psycho. You know, they wanted that. They wanted Norman Bates, and you know, they even they pulled everything about Ed Gein into Norman Bates, and they put that into him. You know, and like they even gave him a normal name. You know, so like Ed Gein, you just got that like Ed. That's just like a normal name. You know, you don't think of anything like that. But you know, and then Norman Bates. So, but I also liked where they threw in Tobe Hooper coming up with the idea of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Where at the time it was head cheese, but like he got it in the idea of him like sitting in a line at Christmas time and just sawing through people. So, and I love the element and the way they copied what everybody looked like on that film, and they weaved it into the story. Brand, it was so perfect, because I'm not a fan. I don't know what's that.
The scene in the bus when it's like the full realization of how horrific Leatherface really is, as he's like putting his finishing touches on like the makeup and explaining to him like what the mentality behind the Leatherface character is. And like I said, I think the realization of how horrific that character was, I think they portrayed that fantastically. I think that was definitely a high point in the series as well, you know, and in all things influenced by Ed Gein. I think they did a fantastic job in portraying that.
Yeah, sure. And I love that. I love that they did that. And the guy who played Tobe Hooper was fucking perfect. And when they put it into the aspect of Buffalo Bob from Silence of the Lambs, and how they, you know, he was making a woman's suit out of, you know, bigger ladies, and he was like, that's kind of what Ed Gein was doing, you know. And some of the things they found at Ed Gein's house in the show, that was true. Bernice Warren's entrails were in a like towel or like a burlap sack kind of a thing they just found him in hanging there, and he had absolutely no recollection of doing it. He said he was like in a daze or something. The voice though, the voice of Ed Gein, okay, so this is what I think about the voice, and a lot of people have hated it, but you got to remember, Charlie Hunnam is a British guy trying to do a Midwest accent. That's, you know, and he has nothing to base it on. He only got the recordings that you hear now. I have never heard that shit before. I never even knew that existed. I had no idea that was even a thing. So I think he tried his best. With kitty kitty kit meow 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 meow.
Oh, he's going to be obnoxious, so I have to do it.
Meow, meow, meow. So what do you think about his voice?
I would say it successfully annoyed me the entire time, but I did get used to it. At times found it comical, in just the affectations of his speech, the way he said things. At times when they would add kind of the funny element to things, having that voice definitely added to the comedic element of it. But I mean, in the reality of it, I don't understand why that decision was necessarily made. You know, when you do listen to some of the recordings of Ed Gein's actual voice, he really didn't sound anything like that. At times there are parts in some of the recordings where he does come across as having maybe a higher pitched voice, but I think he's just very soft spoken more than anything. In a lot of the other recordings that I've heard, he comes across as fairly average Midwestern middle-aged man sounding in general. to be quite honest. So again, I don't know if where the decision to come at it with that voice exactly was. It's absolutely added a disturbing element to it, I would say, whether you like it or not. It does maybe add a little bit of creepiness, I guess. So that could be a possible intended effect, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. At times I found it good. I didn't mind it to begin with, but like, then again, like, I had nothing to really base it off of. Like, I'd never heard those voices or those voice recordings ever. Like, I'd never heard that shit before. So it was what it was to me. It was just like, okay. And then after I heard Ed Gein's real voice, I was like, okay, like it didn't sound anything like that. But then again, Charlie Hunnam's also like 30 years younger than what Ed Gein was when he got arrested. He's also like fucking way too buff to play Ed Gein. Ed Gein was like a scrawny old man. He wasn't like a ripped fucking dude, like running around with a chainsaw and fucking ladies' underwear. Also, like, the other thing that I thought was preposterous was the fact that he saw World War II photos and that's why he skinned people. That's not fucking true at all. There's no evidence even to point that. I don't even know why they went that way. Probably because it was around the same time, so they needed him to like get it from somewhere. But I think he was just fucking crazy, you know? I think that's what makes Ed Gein one of the most prolific serial killers in America, and what makes him the scariest one is because he didn't have a fucking reason to do it. He just fucking did it, you know? It wasn't something, I don't even think he even gave it a thought. He just fucking, like, they tried to explain what schizophrenia was in the show.
Didn't even know why.
Yeah, he had no fucking clue. He just did it. And that's what makes him fucking scary. He's afraid of himself. Like, that's fucking wild. The ending of the show where they show him break down and become more humanized, I get it. I don't think that's really what happened, because you really don't know anything about, you know, old man Ed Gein, you know, when he's like 1970s Ed Gein, because he does go back to court and face the murder trial.
You don't hear a whole lot about the institutionalized Ed Gein. A lot of times, you know, the excitement of his story dies when he pretty much goes to the mental institution, and from that point on, there really isn't a whole lot to
said about him.
Right. He lived until 1984, I believe it was, 82, 84,
yeah, something like that. 86, 84, I don't remember.
And that was pretty well it. That was one of the kind of the timeline type things I was not a fan of, especially like with the multiple ham radios and like that all being a delusion. I feel like it's because in reality he went to a mental institution and that's all that happened, and then he died there. So there's not much of an exciting 4 episodes worth of material to fill unless you kind of make some shit up. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe that was the reasoning behind it, where, hey, we really just need to push how crazy he is, or he's delusional and he's hallucinated all this type stuff, or what. But I didn't think that was great. Personally, I wasn't a fan of that so much.
I didn't either. I thought that was just, it was pushed too hard, you know. And like, you don't know anything about Ed Gein as he's institutionalized. You know, when he goes to the mental institution, because he was deemed unfit. But when he gets older, Ed Gein does petition to get out, and he's older. He's an old guy, because he is better. He is taking medication, and he thinks he can get out. Well, he gets out, faces the trial faces the murder charges of Bernice Warden, is found guilty of that, and sent back to the crazy house where he ends up dying of lung cancer in his mid 60s. You know, so there isn't a lot, because there wasn't anything he was doing. He was helping people out, or he was just another crazy fucking dude walking in circles in a mental institution. Like, there's nothing that really was anything about him. I think he was mostly a boring guy. I really think that Ed Gein was just a normal boring dude, it just happened. His hobbies were digging up dead bodies, and I don't think he knew what he was doing, and I don't think he really cared. I think he was just fucked up, and I think he got some twisted pleasure out of digging up dead corpses. I don't know if he ever engaged in, relations with an actual dead body. I don't know if that's true or not. It could be, it could not be. I don't know. I never heard a story that corroborates that or not. I just want people to realize what you're watching is mostly 90% of it is made up. A lot of it is made up for Hollywood purposes. Another thing I want to say is that there's a lot of people going down to Plainfield, and I get it. I think that's cool. We got Ed Gein. It's like what we're famous for, cheese and Ed Gein. And so I get it. Like, that's cool. But one of the things is like, don't go down there and start chiseling pieces off of Augusta's grave. That's crazy. Don't go taking pictures with there's other people buried there. All right. Don't go chiseling pieces off of, Abraham or Adam's grave or Warden's grave. Like, just don't do that shit. Go down there and spend money, but like, because that town doesn't get a lot of shit. So also in my Ed Gein episode, I pulled up to a True Value, which I thought that was the Warden's store, and it's actually not. So that's not the Bernice Warden's hardware store. My last episode down there was educational, but I got a lot of things wrong. So I'll link that in the description box below. But you missed the very tail ending. Like one of the last things that happens is his gravestone gets robbed. The shows a bunch of kids partying in the Plainfield Cemetery and yanking the stone out, and they're driving off with it. And one of the kids sees like this dude waving in the distance. So he kind of goes up and talks to him, and then he gets spooked because it's Anthony Perkins waving at him. And as he turns the corner, it's Leatherface, and he's chasing him through the graveyard with a chainsaw. And then all of a sudden he turns the corner, and Buffalo Bob's standing there going like this, and he gets in the truck and he drives off, and he's all nuts. And then it's just Ed Gein walking through the graveyard, just haunting the graveyard, which I thought was a pretty cool ending to the show, I guess.
I fell asleep. I gotta be honest. I power watched every episode. I was sick as hell, and I made it to about halfway through the very last episode, and that was it for me. So.
Yeah, that's what you missed. And then this weird fucking the Birdman, you missed that. That was Richard Speck. Was nothing to do with Ed Gein. I don't know where they got that. Also, Ed Gein never helped out the FBI looking for Bundy. I thought that was stupid. That never happened at all. They wouldn't talk to Ed Gein because he was fucking crazy. All right, the guy dug up dead bodies. He doesn't even remember doing that. So why would the FBI go to him? Ed Gein didn't do that. Richard Speck had nothing to do with it, and he does this weird dance number with all these serial killers, and Ed Kemper's I can't wait, burn in hell with you, and all this other stupid shit. Then he does this dance number to this 80s song, and he walks up the stairs and sees his mom, and she says she's proud of him for some fucking reason. He's like, you brought great honor to our name, Gein. No, you didn't. You dug up dead bodies, you fucking lunatic. So shut up. But yeah, that's all you missed.
No, I all in all, I'm glad. I'd have to say I'm glad I watched it. I was a little disappointed by some of the liberties that were taken, and some of the just inaccuracies. And like I said at the beginning, and we've kind of echoed the sentiment, throughout it, that just people are going to take that and run, with that being factual or the reality of it, and it just wasn't. But for entertainment purposes, I'd say overall it's worth spending a couple nights or one day in particular, if you have the time for it, to watch. And the other ones in the series are pretty good as well. So, along with that, I would recommend watching those if it's the kind of thing that you're into.
I would too. If you're a true crime buff, I would definitely check it out. So in conclusion, I think it was definitely the same. Cool show, cool idea. Fucking, it's what we what we're famous for, what we named our band after, you know. And so if you guys want to check out our band, I'll link that in the description box. Also, Jeff's YouTube channel, I will also link that. So thank you very much, Jeffrey, for sticking around and talking to me about all the things that we like to talk about. And until next time, tell your friends, tell your mom, like, comment, subscribe, stay horror. We'll see you next time, you fucking nerds.